also, I want to just touch base quickly on the fiscal note. As was mentioned with the fiscal note on the previous No Child Left Behind bill, sometimes a department, because of their vested interest in maintaining the status quo or paying their employees or whatever, will make and they're opposed to the bill because it would directly affect their money flow, they will write a fiscal note that looks so onerous that, my goodness, the legislature would never approve of that just because of the cost to the state. Well, if you look at this fiscal note, you'll notice, yeah, it's just like the previous fiscal note for the other No Child Left Behind bill, and it's going to cost the state over $61 million. But again, what the department failed to do in making a complete fiscal note, and that was one of the criticisms made on an earlier bill, that it is important for the state to do a better job on creating complete fiscal notes. What the department failed to do in this case was show how much money flowing from the federal government for all these programs, $61 million. What they don't show is, because of all the strings attached for these programs, how much state and local money also has to be raised in order to make up the difference to fully fund all these programs and all the strings attached. And also, it doesn't include, at least in my bill, the possibility that the legislature might actually approve of some of or all of these programs in the future because of their value, and it's worth the cost. And so the actual real long-term cost for this bill might be very much less than the $61 million. And just to use an example, maybe the College and Career Ready Students program where $40 million comes from the federal government is so good that the legislature continues to agree that it's worth it and makes an agreement with the federal government to continue that program. Well, that's $40 million coming from the federal government for that program. So it's a little disingenuous for the department to come up with a fiscal note that's so one-sided and doesn't really show the entire picture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We've heard testimony earlier today regarding a similar topic, that we accept these dollars from DC with conditions, and if we didn't want the, so we have to follow these conditions. We're kind of forced into doing this. Would you believe that since 2000, year 2000, with the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, now currently No Child Left Behind, the federal funding has increased 73% in the area of education, and the product, the achievement scores of our students has flatlined. I.e., I referenced Education Week just from Lamar Alexander. What do you believe?
I would definitely believe that.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking my question. Do you, when I look at the fiscal note, do you know, other than the college and career ready, I know how that figure is generated, and I know how that money is distributed to districts. It's based on actual numbers of children meeting certain categories. It is not discretionary money, it is categorical aid. But what I don't know is the basis for the other figures. Do you know what that is?
You're asking me to give you the basis upon which the department provided these figures and these particular programs?
Well, yes, because I know what the college and career-ready students, I know that figure, $40 million, is based on actual numbers of children meeting certain categories. All right, because I worked with Title I for 16 years. That was before it was No Child Left Behind. But I'm not sure. I know how migrant ed monies are generated and neglected and delinquent. But there are some of these others that I'm not sure whether these are just straight outright grants or whether they are also based on numbers of students and therefore intended to provide direct services to students. So that's why I was asking the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question because I don't know all the details. But in reference to Representative Fraser's earlier comment about English and titles being really important and being complete, well, for instance, the next one on the list after college and career ready students is Title I rewards.
Right, yeah.
So I would assume that we get a reward for putting as many students into Title I as possible. It's sort of like a benefit we're getting because of the word reward.
Right.
I just say that facetiously. But school turnaround grants, I mean, come on, over $1.6 million. And I'm assuming that that's to turn schools that didn't meet adequate yearly progress. And so it's additional money going to those schools to try to turn them around and improve their performance. Where's the analysis? Were those, we spent $1.6 million of federal money plus whatever state money and local money we spent for that program. Are any schools turned around? The last I looked, more schools were added to the list of not making adequate yearly progress, not the other way around. So it seems to me we're kind of wasting money here on a program that isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. So that's how I looked at that list. And we don't have that analysis. Where is it? Ask the department representative.
Representative Cole?
Is it possible with the money allocated in the school turnaround grants, so a school is not meeting annual yearly progress, right? So they get extra money for the students and for that school system because they haven't kept up. That would encourage behavior like that?
When you add more money, you encourage that behavior. When you take money away, you usually discourage that behavior.
Is there any other further questions for Representative Balboni? Representative Petrie?
One more, would you believe? Oyster River scored fourth highest in the NECAP test, which they spent $18,000, but yet they did not make AYP in one of their schools. Would you believe that?
I would believe that, because I trust you.
I looked it up.
Representative Ladd?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My question is, I didn't get to the second part after the first part there regarding the amount the feds are spending on this. We as a state have become dependent upon federal dollars, very dependent. And of course, we're not really seeing a good return on those dollars. But what are we going to do to our local school districts are very dependent upon right now those particular dollars. What are we going to do to provide the dollars, the needed expenses that they've sort of become so used to? Where are we going to go? Is the property tax going to be increased? Do you have any ideas of where we're going on that one?
That's actually a very good question. It actually is a much broader question, because in my research I found out that these federal dollars, that even though in the fiscal note they carry those out into the future, these are not guaranteed dollars by the federal government. They're on a year-to-year basis, most of these things. So from year to year, we're not really sure as a state whether or not we're going to get that money the following year. And even if we're assured that we might get some money, we're not assured that we're going to get the same amount that year. So when we look at these dollars, and again, somebody on an earlier bill mentioned the American Investment and Recovery Act, where that huge several $1 trillion worth of immediate federal spending that money just went out and flowed to all the states. One-time money. Little accountability, and we could talk about the results of that and the benefits. But the bottom line was the states, if they then changed their laws or regulations or agencies implemented new rules, assuming that that money was going to be there into the future, there's no guarantee that it will be there. So to get to your question, if the state and or the local folks have become dependent on this money, and they've added all these new programs and hired more personnel in the hope that they'll continue to get this funding, there's never been a guarantee from the federal government that they'll get it next year. So some changes might have to take place, just like when we, as a legislature, make a budget every 2 years. Some programs get money, some programs don't get money. Some programs get less money than they anticipated, they have to make changes. But that's been going on in our education system since the beginning of time. We don't still have the one-room schoolhouse, and very little tax money actually going to pay for that one teacher in the schoolhouse and just a few expenses for the building. We've now created much larger buildings, more staff, et cetera. In some districts, other districts, less expensive. Again, it's still up to the local districts to decide how much they want to spend on education. What do they want to spend it on? And if the federal government doesn't provide them that money, or the state doesn't provide them that money, the local folks have decided they want that program.